The mindset behind why people buy yachts and supercars to get around certain people to elevate their game. And
then he made a decision. I'm not only going to take action and get into real estate, but I'm going to level up my content. And he grew from 4,000 followers to over 200,000 in 2 years.
I was like, I felt stuck. I didn't feel like I was growing, and I knew I needed to make a change. And I was like looking for that next thing.
Is there a program where you can find this information, this data, and you can pull it? Or is it all kind of manual entry and you kind of got to do some digging?
And we got a property management business where we self-manage all of the boutique hotels. I own some Airbnbs as well. We also manage Airbnbs.
What do you think was the number one thing that allowed you to go buy an 11 unit or a 32 unit as your first couple deals?
In 2020, I bought another Airbnb. It was 2-unit Airbnb. And then it was the following year I did that first capital raise. So it was a year and a half later.
At what point did you feel like you really needed to put a focus on the brand to grow Rich and Summers Capital?
And it's just interesting. You've done the social media scale on, just as I mentioned, the next level is like raising private capital, building trust, building relationships, and then offloading those into the real world. Welcome back to the Wealth Juice podcast. As always, it's your boys, Ryan and Corey here with another episode for you. Today, we had an unbelievable episode, unbelievable guest, actually someone we really look up to in the space. Rich Summers joins the show, and most of you in the real estate investing space, you know him. You've probably seen him on social. He always posts inspiring tweets, and he is one of the bigger names in the boutique hotel spaces these days. He has an incredible podcast, The Rich Summers Report. He's interviewed Grant Cardone, Pace Morby, Mikey Taylor, some like massive names in the space. And we've learned a lot from him. His podcast is really about real estate, business, and lifestyle. So similar to ours, but maybe a little bit more broad topics. But we dove into a lot of different things in this episode. We started from his journey as an air traffic controller and then talked about how he got into real estate. And from there, how he scaled up into raising money, getting into the boutique hotel space. And then from there, the second half of the episode, which I personally love because it's like, I always like to learn behind the scenes and the systems and how this works and why people do what they do. We talked about the power of personal branding and how to build your digital resume. And not only from the social media aspect, but taking those relationships and bringing them into real life and starting events and, you know, the mindset behind why people buy yachts and supercars to get around certain people to elevate their game. And so this episode, I think you guys probably will be one of our most downloaded, if not the most downloaded and forever, because it is just all encapsulating from front to beginning and it's super motivating. And so, earmark this one, save it, make sure you go through the end because just a hell of an episode and a lot to learn.
Rich is one of those people that you just want to be around, and you can't really for the longest time, I was trying to figure out what it is about him. And he's just extremely positive and he makes you feel good and he knows how to win a room. And I think that goes such a long way. This is one of those episodes. It's why we started the podcast, to have people like Rich on, the whole. People are like, what? The wealth juice, where'd the juice come from? This, if you don't get juiced from listening to this, and that's the whole purpose of why we started this. If you don't get juiced, you got to check your pulse. Rich has all the tools to help you grow. His first property, and I'll just talk a little bit about it, was an 11 unit. His second property was a 32 unit. Then he got into boutique or Airbnbs and boutique hotels, and he just went all in. Now, keep in mind, for 10 or 11 years, he was working as an air traffic controller. So he wasn't taking the action that he wanted to. And then he made a decision. I'm not only going to take action and get into real estate, but I'm going to level up my content. And he grew from 4,000 followers to over 200,000 in 2 years. And that is why he's standing in the position that he is with the network and the people around him. And Ryan and I are candidly in Rich's mastermind, which has helped us immensely grow our brand, but also our coaching program and being the people that other people want to be around. And I can't thank Rich enough. We kind of glazed him up today a little bit, but it was worth having that conversation because he's in our circle. And that, if anything, is what life's about, is surrounding yourself with people who you know, like, and trust and can do deals with and have fun with. And we got to figure out a way to get out to his December event.
He's invited us to hang out so many times, and we're just we keep not pushing it on purpose.
It's across the country.
It is across the country. He's in San Diego. But I will say this: you ever meet a person that just has the it factor or a presence about them, and you just know they're they have it? Not tooting our own horns, but I know Corey and I each have that. And I saw that in Corey from a long time ago when we first met. And I think he saw that in me. And we just knew, we talked about this in previous episodes about our story. We're damn, dude, I just want to be around that guy. He just gets it. He's got this energy. He's going to be successful. And like, it's fun loving. And like, we light up a room, right? Rich does the same exact thing. You're in there and like, he's just the way he vocalizes himself. Like as soon as he walked in before pre-recording, just a ball of energy. He's like, what's up guys? Love you guys. How you doing? Like just checking in on us. It's a different vibe. And you can tell it's not all about the money. It's not about the flash. And the last thing I want to say on this is, right, like any celebrity or any person that is at the top of their game has always started at zero, right? And this episode does a really good job of showing how Rich had to go through the struggle to make it to where he is today. And he put in the time, energy, and effort. He talked about he broke up with a long-term girlfriend. He moved across the country, saved up his money, went all in with his 401k, like took the risks. Like you are not going to be that 1% person if you do what the 99% of the world does. Rich realized that at 33, it's like, I'm over this. And he had enough was enough and he took action. And look where he is today. I would argue he's one of the top celebrities, if you will, or most well-known people in the real estate investing space, purely based on his social media and putting his story out there and then actually backing it up with knowing how to analyze deals, being a trusted source of knowledge and having the people around him where there's like an army of people that are just his sounding boards that sing his praises, right? He did it the right way. So if you want an episode that teaches you from A to Z, like how to make it and go from average Joe to hero in the space, this is the one for you. And you know, we're going to continue to keep learning from Rich. And I think this episode really, really, truly will change your life if you put the knowledge and the nuggets that he mentioned into action and just stop sitting and waiting. Because the longer you sit and wait, you know, the closer you're going to get to be that 67-year-old that is, you know, fading away in life and not doing the things that you promised yourself you would. So without further ado, let's welcome in Rich Summers. Rich, officially welcome to the Wealth Juice podcast. Corey and I are stoked, to say the least, to have you on the show today, man. We've been in the same circle for a little while now. We have learned a lot from you, and it's just a pleasure and an honor to have you on the show. So thanks for joining us.
Corey, Ryan, appreciate you guys having me on. And man, I am loving the black on black. You guys are always swagged out, looking swaggy and looking vibey, man. Appreciate you guys having me on and super excited for today's conversation.
Hell yeah, man. Yeah, we're cut from the same cloth here. I was telling you pre-recording, we don't go anywhere without the black on black. Super clean look. But dude, we will get into pretty much all things real estate, all things personal branding, social media today. But take us from the top. For those who don't know you, will be a shocker, at least from our community. But on social, we've seen you kind of build your portfolio, build your network. But I want to take it back to day one pre-real estate. We know you were an air traffic controller. Talk to us about pre-real estate and like when the light bulb went off when you realized you really wanted to get in the game.
Man, so I grew up like most people. I grew up middle class. My mom was an immigrant from Taiwan, and my dad grew up out in Holland. And both my parents know the value of saving your money, and so they taught me from a young age to go to school, get good grades, go to college, get a job. And for the most part, that's what I did. Have a background in sales. My first sales job was in college, selling cell phones at the mall. I was the guy at the kiosk selling singular wireless cell phones. And for the first time in my life, I was told in order to be successful, you got to talk to people and say hi. And so I was uncomfortable at first, and I got good at doing that. I worked my way up from being brand new, talking to strangers, to being top at sales. And a couple of my coworkers went on to sell cars, and I was still going to school and I was in college. And they were like, "Hey, come sell cars. You'll make a lot more money." And so I went over and started selling cars at a Massey Nissan dealership located here in San Diego, selling Nissans. And I did really well at that, and I was very competitive. And I thought, man, I want to sell commercial real estate because I love sales, and I was very competitive. I played sports growing up. I played baseball, basketball. I was skateboarded a lot growing up, and I always wanted to be the best. And so there was no difference with sales. I wanted to be the best. And so I thought, man, I want to sell what gives you the highest commissions, and the highest commission in sales is commercial real estate. And so I interviewed out of college, it was 2008, CB Richard Ellis, and I interviewed with CBRE. And CB Richard Ellis and Grubb & Ellis. And they were both like, "Hey, we love your hustle. We think you'd be great at it, but this is not the right time to get in." And this is like middle of 2008. Everything was crashing. The whole economy was coming down. It's probably the worst time in history to graduate college. And so I found myself working on a car lot, wondering like, what the fuck am I going to do with my life? And I stumbled across a job as an air traffic controller with the FAA. And this is like during a period where no one was hiring. And I was like, oh man, I can go make like 6.5 figures slanging airplanes on a radar scope. It's like playing video games. And so they hired me. I went and took this like general test. There's nothing you study for. And I scored really high. And they said, "Hey, if you can pass the drug test, we got a start date for you out in Oklahoma City in 2 weeks." And so got out, I packed up a suitcase, embrace everything I had at the time. This is 2009, and I drove out to Oklahoma City and started this new chapter in my life. I ended up doing it for 11 years. But along the way, man, I reached this point probably about 8 years into my 11-year career, and I was like, I felt stuck. I didn't feel like I was growing, and I knew I needed to make a change. And I was like looking for that next thing. And I was hanging out in the break room, and I overheard a coworker talking about how he just closed on a fourplex in Cleveland. And I thought it was the coolest thing ever. His name was Mike. I was like, yo, Mike, how the fuck did you close on this fourplex in Cleveland? Tell me how you did it. And he goes, read this blue book by Brandon Turner and listen to this podcast called the Bigger Pockets Podcast. And next thing you know, bro, I read that book and I just started reading more books about real estate investing and financial freedom. And I started binge listening to the Bigger Pockets Podcast. I literally probably listened like 3 episodes every single day. And I did nothing for like fucking 9 months. Like literally, I stopped going out. I broke up with my girlfriend at the time. She felt like it was competing with our time together. And so I broke it off. And literally, I just worked 6-day work weeks as an air traffic controllers. And every time outside of the workplace, whether it was on break, on the way to work, after work, I just fucking became obsessed. I studied, I read books, I listened to podcasts. I started a fucking real estate meetup before I even owned any real estate. And I knew it was just a matter of fucking when and not a matter of if. I was fucking obsessed. And the only money I had in my name at that point was a 401k. I had about $330,000 in this 401k. And I knew I wanted to get into apartment investing. And so I bought my first deal, was 11-unit building in Cincinnati. And I cashed out my 401k, unlike what society's going to tell you. I had friends, family members, coworkers at the time. Everyone told me it was too risky. They're like, do not fucking cash out your 401k. You're fucking crazy. Do not go invest out of state. But I fucking did it. And I did it anyways. And I bought this 11-unit building in Cincinnati, $350,000, C-class deal. I still own today. I put 25% down and put a little bit of money into renovating the property. And then shortly after, literally like almost simultaneously, I think I had both of these deals in our contracts. So like 3 or 4 weeks later, I closed on a 32-unit building in Indianapolis with 2 partners. It was that guy named Mike that I just went in the break room that I told you about, and another guy named Sean. The 3 of us were air traffic controllers, and we all cashed out our 401ks to buy this 32-unit building in Indianapolis. We bought it for $1.1 million, put 25% down, and those were the first 2 deals, man. And that was all the money I had to my name. And to make a long story short, dude, ended up tripling the value of that 32 units, selling it a couple years later and doing a 1031 exchange. That little 11-unit building I still own today. It's worth $850,000 today. I still own it. And shortly after that, started a podcast. The one thing that I did right early on was I took action. I fucking took action. I started a meetup and I started a podcast right away. Like literally right after I closed on those 2 deals, I started a podcast interviewing apartment investors. And through that podcast, it was like episode 7 or 8, we interviewed this group, John and Tony Azar, and they own like 6,000 units out of the Southeast. They're based out of Charlotte, and they ended up mentoring us and literally teaching us everything: how to underwrite bigger deals, how to raise private capital, how to asset manage, like basically the A to Z. And then I ended up punching out of the air traffic job and went full time into real estate, started raising money, taking down larger deals. Fast forward to today, I got about $80 million of real estate that I control: apartment buildings, boutique hotels. We got a boutique hotel fund under Summers Capital, and we got a property management business where we self-manage all of the boutique hotels. I own some Airbnbs as well. We also manage Airbnbs, and we're off to the races, man. It's been fun. It's been a fun journey, and I'm very grateful to be here. But the last thing I'll say is this is important for your audience. All those risks, like looking back, man, my biggest takeaway looking back when everyone told me not to cash out your 401k, it was too risky to go out of state. My biggest takeaway is this: all those risks are real, so put some weight on them. But on the other side of the balance scale is another risk, and it's this: I could be 85 years old one day, laying in my bed, staring at the ceiling, kicking myself because I never fucking tried anything in life. How about that risk? That's a risk too that a lot of people do not allude to.
Well, Rich, we can shut the lights off right now. You just gave everyone the blueprint of exactly what to do. The question how old are you, by the way?
I'm 39 years old.
39. Okay.
Yeah.
And you bought your first piece of real estate when you were how old?
33 years old.
Okay. That was my point. So I'm turning 33 in a week. Rye is 33, going to be 34. And we tell this to people all the time. People think that if you get to that age and it's like, oh shit, I'm already in my career. It's too late to change. Like, what am I doing? Like, I guess this is my life now. And you refuse to accept that. In fact, you worked for 11 years doing something that you were like, I'm sure you liked it to some degree to stay there for that long, but like you knew it wasn't the thing that fulfilled you. And I find great power in pivoting and like revamping yourself. And you basically did that. Like your social media brand, and we'll get into that. You know, we learned from you that you had a few thousand followers a couple years ago, and now you're over 200,000 because you essentially reinvented yourself. The question that I want to ask you, because that's long-winded, is what do you think was the number one thing that allowed you to go buy an 11 unit or a 32 unit as your first couple deals versus saying, yeah, I'm going to start with a single family. I'm going to start with a duplex. I'll scale up after that, because 95% of people go that route. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I'm just curious of like what made you jump head first as opposed to dipping your toes.
Yeah. Well, first off, what you said is completely true. I mean, I didn't find my true passion until age 33. And at that time, I walked away from this, like, you know, career that most people do for their entire lives. And so everyone said I was crazy. But I think to your point, it's like, it's never too late to reinvent yourself. What caused me to start thinking a little bit bigger, like out the jump, was like literally, it was honestly just reading books and listening to podcasts. And I remember listening to Grant Cardone on the Bigger Pockets podcast. And he was like, hey, like, you gotta go a little bit bigger. You got to think a little bit bigger. You don't need to start with a single family house. And so then I started reading books on commercial real estate. And one of the books that I read was by Brian Murray. And it was the book on commercial real estate investing. I forget the exact name, but it was through Brian Murray. And that book basically changed my whole entire perspective. And it talked about like, hey, like, you know, if you can increase the income and decrease the expenses, and you can force a lot of appreciation through the NOI growth, then you can really control a lot more of the valuation with these assets. And so that's what caused me to think a little bit bigger. And then I went to my two partners at the time, Mike and Sean. They were both underwriting these smaller individual deals. And I said, hey guys, I think if we put our money together, we could do a little bit more damage. And so that deal, that first 32 unit deal we bought together, for example, we bought it for 1.1. It had all the problems. It had all the it had hookers. It had prostitution. I remember the cops showed up during the inspection day. We made all the mistakes with that property. But 2 years later, we ended up selling it for 3.1. We like tripled the value of the property, and we didn't even know what we were doing. And so that's when I was like, oh shit, this stuff really works. Because you can read the books, you can listen to the podcasts, but until you actually do it, you don't really know if it's going to work. And so I did it. And then I didn't get into mentorship and like coaching and all that sort of stuff and masterminds until after the fact. But, you know, I wish I would have had access to that stuff early on.
Totally. So how did the pivot for you come from, you know, you bought one, you bought the second one. You didn't know what you were doing, but it worked out. How did you pivot into the boutique hotel space? Like, where did that come into play? Or Airbnbs, I think, came first for you, right? And then the boutique hotels. We love Airbnbs. We have several. I love it. I'm learning from you about actually boutique hotels, but I'm very curious, like, how you pivoted from kind of to a whole new asset class after the multifamily.
Yeah. So I'll show you the progression in a quick timeline just to give your audience a perspective. So it was 11 units for $350,000 in Cincinnati, cash out the 401k. Shortly after that, literally 3 weeks later, closed on 32 units in Indianapolis for 1.1 with two other partners, used the 401k money. Literally 2 weeks after that, this is like 3 closings all in like the first 6 weeks of my real estate investing career. I closed on a no money down Navy Fed loan for a 2-bedroom condo here in San Diego. That's an Airbnb, zero money down. I used my W-2 income to qualify for that. And I still own that deal today. And then literally 5 months later, through the podcast, I met those mentors. We co-GP'd a big deal, the Arbors, which is a 150-unit townhome style community in Greensboro, North Carolina. That was my first capital raise. So it was like 4 or 5 months after doing my first deal, I'm raising $4 million for this $12.7 million asset in North Carolina. That was in May of 2021. Fast forward, actually it's a little bit longer than that. I'm sorry. 2020, I bought another Airbnb. It was 2-unit Airbnb. And then it was the following year I did that first capital raise. So it was a year and a half later. And then August of 2021, bought Timber Creek Apartments, 145-unit building, another $4 million raise. Then right after that, we're underwriting more apartment deals. And this is kind of in the time frame where COVID, everyone realized, man, COVID just happened. Everyone was on lockdown and there was no recession. The world was shut down and there was no recession. The government just printed a bunch of money. The interest rates were like all-time low. And everyone was chasing real estate deals. Like, it was fucking nuts. And in the apartment game, like, all these like bigger apartments had like 45, 50 offers, and people were fucking just overpaying for these assets and didn't even make sense. And so at that time, I had 3 Airbnbs and I started a managing business where we're like, oh, let's go manage other people's short-term rentals. And so I had this team built out. We were managing short-term rentals. We had the systems and processes, and I already knew how to raise money. I had investors because we were buying apartments. And so this is like early 2022. And I was like, what if we go buy a boutique hotel? Because I understand the Airbnb game, and then multifamily was so competitive. So went and found this 10-unit boutique hotel up in Northern California. It's now called the Black Sands Inn. We still own it. And bought this thing for 1.5 and some change. The seller had financed it. The husband and wife had owned the property for 18 years. They never exceeded $180,000 in gross revenue the entire time they owned it. 10 units, beachfront, gorgeous, had all the fucking bells and whistles. All the units had large living rooms, kitchens, fireplaces, 2003 built property, but it was just tired. It needed like a little bit of an update. And so we ended up buying it. We did a nice little renovation, and then I used my management arm to manage it. And we did the self-check-in, self-checkout model, which allowed us to bring the manager's unit online for additional revenue. And then we eliminated the expense of having an on-site manager on payroll, and that savings just drops to the bottom line. We end up taking the revenue from 180 to north of 600, and 12 months later, it appraised for 4.5 and a quarter. So we bought it for 1.5. And it appraised 12 months later for 4.5 and a quarter. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is the fucking new play. And I love apartments. I love multifamily, and I think they're evergreen. I want to continue to buy more apartments down the road. But right now, I am going all in on the boutique hotel game for a lot of reasons, which we can jump into.
So I wanted to talk about bringing on that manager's unit, because I watched one of your Instagram posts, and I forget who it was with. But you mentioned that one move alone increased the value of the property and the NOI significantly. I don't know if you have those numbers in front of you, but could you talk about that? Because this is the difference in the single family game, where you're comparing comps of other properties and what properties are buying and selling versus the actual money that the property is making. So just talk to us a little bit about that, because I think it gives people inspiration of like why commercial real estate is so powerful.
Totally. So traditional Airbnbs are going to be single family homes. And so single family homes, how are they valued? They're valued based on the comp approach, right? And so whatever that house across the street sold for, generally speaking, on a price per square foot basis, is what your house is worth, no matter how much money it makes as an Airbnb. Now with the boutique hotel game, by bringing the manager's unit online for additional revenue, most of these boutique hotels have an innkeeper suite, and the innkeeper suite typically is the nicest unit on the property. Often they're 2 bedrooms, living rooms, full kitchens, all that sort of thing. And so just to give you guys an example, boutique hotels are valued based on the income approach. And so net operating income divided by the cap rate equals value. What is net operating income? It's NOI. So NOI is derived by gross income minus gross expenses, excluding your debt service payment. So don't include your debt service payment, and that's your NOI. NOI divided by cap rate equals value. So for example, if we bought a hotel and we took the manager's unit online for additional revenue, and let's just say that unit's going to make an extra $60,000 a year. So $60,000 a year. And then let's just say that manager was making $60,000 a year. And now that drops to the bottom line because we're going to operate remotely. So that's a $120,000 increase to our NOI divided by an 8 cap. That adds $1.5 million of valuation to a boutique hotel. Just that one simple move. And you know how much it costs for us to renovate and bring a manager's unit online and go to remote operations? Probably less than $100,000, maybe $80,000, and we're adding $1.5 million of value, and that's the magic formula with these hotels.
Yeah, so that return on investment there of putting 80,000 and getting a 1.5 return is just like, it's insane. So
yes,
I love this. I think your meteoric rise is something that people should study, and like that's why Ryan and I are in your community. We wanted to learn not just the real estate, but like I think I want to pivot a little bit to what happened next here, and your branding and your social media has taken really the story that has taken you to the next level. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you growing. At what point did you feel like you really needed to put a focus on the brand to grow Rich and Summers Capital?
Yeah, it was May of 2022, and I still have the screenshot on my phone. I was doing some cool stuff in the real estate space. I think at that point I controlled about $80 million of real estate. I was raising money, and I was doing some badass shit, but no one knew who I was. And that was the day where I realized, you know what? Enough is enough. I'm going to start prioritizing the social media and the podcast, and I'm going to make that the main hustle. And literally since then, the last almost 2.5 years now, my life has completely changed in so many fucking ways. It's the ability to access better deals. It's the ability to access better lending. I have private lenders that want to throw me more money than I know even know what to do with. Ability to raise capital. I used to jump on 10, 12 calls with one investor to raise $100,000 for a deal. Now we have investors wiring in $250,000 chunks, and I don't even know who they are. Because of the trust and because of the podcast and because of the value of putting yourself out there and putting out content and providing value to others. The personal brand is the most valuable thing that you could build for yourself in 2024. I truly believe that. And it's completely changed my life. And it's not just the things I mentioned. It's the ability to hire and retain good quality team members. It's the ability to network with high caliber people. I mean, I can't name how many fucking like friends and friendships that I've built through the podcast and through social media. You know, folks like Grant Cardone, Ryan Garcia, top boxer in the world, Jordan Belfort, Wolf of Wall Street, Dan Martell, Pace Morby, Ryan Pineda, just to name a few, Carlton Dennis, like all these folks. And one of the biggest hidden plays about the fucking podcast that a lot of people aren't going to tell you is this, and you guys are discovering this right now, is all these folks, these like bigger name folks, like, you know, their time is very valuable, you know? And so to jump on a fucking 1 hour call with these folks, often it might be $5 or $10 grand. I think Grant Cardone charges like fucking like $25,000-$30,000 to jump on a 1 hour call. Right. And so think about it as a podcast host. Now you get a fucking jump on a fucking 1 hour conversation and ask whatever questions that you have for free, where these folks are probably charging 25, 30K. Think about that. That's the biggest fucking life hack ever, man.
It's a cheat code because, and we learned it. I remember to this day, Chad Carson was the first like real estate investor to take a chance on us. He came on our podcast. And then I realized, wow, there's a reciprocal relationship here where it's like, people want to get their story out. We want to learn. We organically networked. And it's funny, our podcast started when the world shut down in 2020. And it was the single reason that we were able to grow at all, and not to the level that you have, but it's just like, we've seen a little bit of success from it because of exactly what you said. We had on Shane So on our podcast. It's probably going to come out in a couple of weeks. And he told us that he paid Grant Cardone and his wife $80,000 or $100,000, right? I forget what the number was, to go meet with them. And he said that he literally 10x his money. So people are spending that type of money and that's the only reason that you and I are having this conversation is because of podcasting. So it's amazing, man. Ryan, I know you probably have a bunch of questions, and I didn't want to leave you out of this, but
don't steal all my thunder, dude.
Yes.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm still here, boys. So Rich, I want to talk about this. We talked about the power of building a personal brand and a digital resume in 2024 and carrying that on. It's almost like building another asset for yourself in a different way, right? And all these things, we've learned this as well, right? People wanted, the more followers you have, the higher quality content you have out there, people come to you and they realize you put like TLC into your business and everything that you do. And it's just like, if there's high quality here, the website's probably going to be high quality, your relationships are probably going to be high quality and everything you do. And that's where the trust comes in. Right. So I want to pivot here a little bit too. We can get into like the nitty gritty of how you do this for your personal branding. I want to do this, but one thing I want to touch on first is I love what you're doing with the yacht meetups. And you mentioned you were doing meetups even before you had any real estate. Now you've taken it to another scale. Can you talk about the mentality of buying a yacht and getting around those types of people? And then also, I believe you've done this in the car space too. And maybe I'm wrong on this, but like the supercar community and all the relationships you build from these things that might look flashy on social media, there's an underlying reason why you do that outside of just the flash.
Yeah, so I mean, I'll start with the yacht meetups. We've been hosting, like I mentioned at the top of the show, I started a meetup before I even owned any real estate back in 2019. We've been hosting this thing for over 5 years now, monthly. And the value of meetup is like you're building community, and we don't raise a lot of money from these meetups, but it's really cool to just build this like network and community of like-minded individuals. And we've seen people doing deals together, people partnering with each other. And it's really cool to see. But also, I think it builds a lot of trust for those in our community that don't even like come to our meetups, right? People see on our email list and on social media, hey, we're hosting meetups every single month. And so for investors to see that, to know like, hey, we're not going to like take your money and run away. Like, we're out there in the public, we're in the community, we're building this thing from the ground up. And all of our investors and everyone that's involved is more than welcome to come out to any of our meetups. And so we thought it was BiggerPockets conference 2 years ago here in San Diego. And going into the conference, I thought, you know what, let's host a freaking yacht meetup. One of my good friends, his name is Champagne Dave, and he owns the Champagne Yacht, which is a boat he charters out here locally in San Diego. So I chartered it and hosted a yacht meetup, and we charged like $250 to come out. We got 2 sushi chefs on the boat. We got a saxophone player. We got a DJ, all you can drink. And it's just good high-level networking on the water, about 50, 60 of us. And we'll charge like $250 just to kind of break even. The goal is not to make money, but just to break even. And it's a little bit higher level networking, and it went really well. And so I thought, why don't we just do this during the warm summer months between May and September? And so we made it a thing. And so we've been doing it for like 2.5 years now. And it's been a hit. It's been fun, and it's been cool. And then regarding the car club, I always say one of the biggest mistakes out there that I see real estate investors make is like, if the goal is to raise money to buy deals, I see a lot of folks out there try to go position themselves to audiences of other people that are trying to go buy deals as well. For example, if you're trying to attract passive investors for your real estate projects, why are you going to go to these real estate meetups and be around other active real estate investors? Why are you going to start a podcast that's specifically about how to buy and reposition apartments where you're not going to attract passive investors to listen to that? Passive investors have money, they have lives, they have families. And so in order to attract those passive investors, you need to ask yourself, where do those passive investors with deep pockets, where do they hang out, right? So one of them is a car club. Another one is like a country club. People like to golf with money. So go join like a nice country club, start networking with those folks. But anyways, the car club, Fast Lane Drive. I had the founder on my podcast last summer. His name's Clem, and Clem came on and he's talking about it. He's got like 12, 13 chapters around the world now. They're in like places like LA, Miami, Austin, New York, Scottsdale, San Diego, even Monaco. And he's talking about it, like what they do. And they get together, they do these rallies, like 200 cars, Ferraris, Lambos, Bugattis, and they do these cool rallies, 3-4 hour drive. And then they'll typically do like a really cool after party after, like they'll rent like a nice private yacht, or they'll do like some sort of mansion party. Like they're really sick and fun, and it's like great networking. And I joined it, and it's a great way to meet other business owners. Most of these folks are not in real estate, but they're making a lot of money through their businesses, and they have extra income to invest passively. And so I always suggest if you're looking to attract private capital, go put yourselves in networks of other folks that have money, because having a podcast or going to these real estate investing meetups is not where these big passive investors with deep pockets are going to want to hang out.
Totally. I think as we kind of evolve in this game, we're learning you got to pay to play. And I love the Fast Lane Drive thing. I was checking it out. Graham Stefan, yeah, sorry. He also did the same thing. He hosts the Iced Coffee Hour podcast, but I saw he mentioned when he was 19, he worked for a big real estate brokerage, so made his first big chunk of change, bought a Lotus right away, and immediately joined a car club. And then 5 or 10 years later, maybe even shorter than that, sold the car for exactly what it was worth. But all the people he met within the car club turned into his clients and bought mega mansions. So it was like this crazy story. And it's true. You're not the only person that's doing this on a high level. I'm like, dude, this is the next tier and level for us. So it's funny, Corey and I, like we were talking about it pre-show, you're where we aspire to be in the next level. So it's like, we need to surround ourselves with Rich and other people just like Rich, because you automatically level up to those people. The more value you provide, the more time you spend with them, et cetera. And it's just interesting. You've done the social media scale on, just as I mentioned, the next level is like raising private capital, building trust, building relationships, and then offloading those into the real world. I think it's different from, you're being social on social media. Most people forget to be social. They just want to be flashy, but you're taking that social aspect and bringing it into real world with Fast Lane Drive, and then also the yacht parties, your meetups, and then the podcast. I really want to hone in on the podcast, because you started one back with the other gentlemen, the air traffic control guys, and then you pivoted at one point to do your own. And I think you had your own vision. Maybe you can talk to why you decided to start your own, and then maybe the back end work that it took to build it to the level you have. Because we've started a mom and pop podcast too, right? But to take yours to the level it's been, can you maybe take us through that timeline a little bit?
Yeah, of course. So a lot of people don't know this, but I had a old podcast for 3 years called the Multifamily Takeoff. 2 old partners, and these are the 2 folks that I bought a lot of apartments with. And a couple of years ago, it was a very tough decision, but I came to the realization that I was no longer going to reach my full potential under that structure. And so it was a very successful partnership. Love those guys. I'm a big fan of everything they're doing, but I decided to go on my own. And we still own some real estate today. We're friends, but we're just doing our own thing now. And it's a win for them. It's a win for me. But that said, when we split up, I said, you guys keep the podcast. I'm going to start my own. And so I took everything I liked and didn't like about that podcast, and I started this one. And so one of the problems with that one was it was all about apartment investing. And after 100 episodes, I got bored of talking about apartments. It's the same conversation every single time. If you get bored as the host, the audience is likely going to get bored as well. And so with this one, I'm way more niched up. And yes, my niche is still real estate investing and specifically boutique hotels, but I probably talk real estate investing in hotels and that sort of thing probably 20% of the time or less. And the other 80% of the time, I'm bringing on doctors, I'm bringing on athletes, I'm bringing on people of all walks of life, anyone that has an inspiring story, any fun and interesting facts to share, I'm bringing them on. And so it's cool. It keeps the conversation engaging. I get to learn about different things. I get to increase my knowledge level, but most importantly, I think in order to grow a bigger audience, you got to go wider. Because at the same time, like I told you guys at the top of the show, doing every podcast on apartment investing specifically, we're going to attract people that are trying to buy apartments. And I don't really want an audience of people that just want to buy apartments. I want an audience that's going to be well diverse, people that come from all different walks of life. And so in order to do that, you got to go a little bit more niched up. And it's been fun. And I've been able to build a lot more relationships because of it.
What would you say is the theme of your podcast? A lot of these high level guys, some are in real estate, as I mentioned, but I've seen a lot of the athletes. We've kind of gone through it. I love listening to your show, man. You do a lot of research on your guests. So kudos to you. You already know with all the 5 stars, you're kicking ass, but just from an avid listener, it's enjoyable. It's never boring to me. And I think it's all the homework you do up front, but can you what's the theme of your podcast? Like, is it just lifestyle, wealth, et cetera?
Yeah, it's easy. Real estate, business, and lifestyle.
There you go. Cool.
Yeah.
And then nitty gritty, let's just dive a little bit more into the how to on social media, right? 2024, everything's evolving. Algorithms are always changing. There's YouTube, Instagram, Threads, Twitter, whatever you want to say, X. So let's talk Instagram because that's where we both live pretty much every day and all day. What are you seeing and what would you recommend for people to do if they're starting out trying to build their brand from day one? They're aspiring real estate investor, maybe they have one unit and they're like, listen, I get it. I want to get to the next level. I want to network. How do you evolve that brand? Maybe some tips and tricks.
Yeah. So I think first things first, you want to get clear on what your vision is. What's your ideal avatar? So for example, are you an Airbnb investor? Or are you in the fitness space, right? And so if you're in the fitness space and you have a coaching business in the fitness space, then your content should be different than someone that's in the Airbnb game that's looking to put out Airbnb educational content. And so that's first and foremost. So get clear on exactly what it is. You have 2 types of content. You have education and you have entertainment. For 99% of us, you're going to grow the brand through education. For the folks that are like movie stars, celebrities, professional athletes that already have a loyal fan base, you can get away with entertaining content, right? Or if you're a stand-up comedian, all that sort of thing, you can get away with entertaining content. But if no one knows who you are and you're starting from scratch, you're not going to go out there and just start entertaining people and actually blow up. You have to give some sort of value exchange, and that's through education. So you have to educate and you have to inspire and that sort of thing. And from there, the number one cheat code about the content that I've done a good job about doing is you always got to post for the number of shares. A lot of people think when they approach a piece of content, they think, okay, is this going to get likes? Is this going to get comments? But that doesn't work. And that's not how these algorithms on social media work. So these social media platforms know they want to keep the user on the platform. And so how do they keep the user on the platform? They show them viral content. Right. And so they only put viral pieces of content in front of these users. And so it's a good thing if you're new right now. It's really leveled the playing field. I mean, there's 4.8 billion people on social media right now, and the playing field has now been leveled because of the way these algorithms work. And so if you're starting from scratch, you should be encouraged because you have an equal leg up than someone who already has an established brand, because at any point, any piece of content could go viral, and that's how you could pick up a good chunk of followers, another 5,000, 7,000 clip of followers or so. To me, I always start with every single post and I ask myself before I post it, is this valuable enough piece of content? Am I giving enough value to where someone's going to want to share it with a friend or share it in a story? If the answer is no, then I need to go back and run through another version of the content before I post it. And if we can't get it right, then we need to basically scrap it and start from scratch. So another thing that you can do, there's another tip that your audience can take away today, is I always say, look and study at like 4 or 5 content creators that are in your niche that you inspire to become, that are successfully growing on social media. Go to their pages and look at their most viewed content. Look at the pieces that have got the biggest reaches, and take notes of those pieces of content. What are the topics? How do they do their hooks? And then make notes of all this, right? And see how they do the call to action, all that sort of stuff. And if you take notes of all this stuff and you study these folks, now you have like 100 pieces of content that you already know these topics work, these topics people like to engage with. And so that way you're not shooting from the hip. And so assuming that you have experience with these topics, put those topics in your own words. And now you have pieces of content that you know people like to engage with. And so those are 2 tips that I like.
Yeah, I have 2 things here. First of all, thank you for that, because actionable tips, like people can get started today. You do a really good job, and I just want to like bring this to the forefront of like doing the research behind the scenes. And everybody thinks it's probably, or most people are like, oh, it's easy, they just post on social media, some of the posts go viral. Like there's a science to this, and like a lot of self-education, trial and error, all this stuff, and navigating trends. When we joined your program and kind of started talking like in the weeds on this type of stuff, you sent us out it's a big Excel file, and it shows the number of likes certain posts had, certain like what Instagram accounts have, like their fake follower to real follower ratio and all that. I'm wondering, I'm sure there's a bunch of people in the back end that's kind of help you build this out, but I'm curious, is there a program where you can find this information, this data, and you can pull it, or is it all kind of manual entry and you kind of got to do some digging? And you might not know that off the top of your head. I was just curious because the sheet you sent us was robust, and I've been trying to study and pull information out of it. Curious if there's like a hub they can go to.
Yeah, there's definitely hubs out there. I don't know exactly how my team pulls all this data, but I can definitely get with them and circle back, and we could probably drop it in your show notes for sure.
Cool. All right. And no sweat. The last thing I want to do is give you your flowers while you're on the show. So
you guys are too nice to me, man.
Yeah, I know. I got to start being a bully, but I'll continue with the last nice thing I'll say about you is, so we joined the program, we started talking social, right? We already talked about this, the black on black look, the luxury feel, right? You're going to attract that by putting yourself out there as that. And I've always liked that look. And every time I would like screenshot your post, I'm like, dude, this guy he just gets it. I saw myself in you, and like that, that sounds weird, but like you want to aspire to be someone, right? Shoot for the stars. I'm like, dude, that's the freaking guy, dude. And so we started with our tweet posts, right? Changing them to the black, right? And then we have the orange logo and it pops off the back. You have the white that contrasts on the black. There's subtleties, right? But there's the method to my madness here. So then we started talking about the post, and you're like, dude, you guys got to tailor your posts. You got to make a very short hook, but something that pulls people in, not a super lengthy caption, share some personal stories, stuff. It's semi-basic, but then other things, there's a craft to it. I want to just give you a shout out. We joined, I forget when we joined the program, maybe like a month ago, but that week I found a post that I really liked. Someone else posted it. I'm going to read it. And we just basically reframed it. And I just want to share the results to you. And I know the program with it, but it goes like this. The fastest way to wealth is to have a 2-income household with someone that has the same goals as you. One income pays the bills, the other is stacked and invested. If you do that consistently, you'll be rich in a relatively short period of time. Hard to get rich when you're doing life alone. We posted that, dude. I posted the part of the caption was the fastest way to wealth, ? Started with that. And I shared a small anecdote of how my wife and I do this. She covered the mortgage, pays the bills. I cover everything else. A sales job, right? Real estate covers the masses. And we've reached $1 million net worth by 33, right? And we have a ton of real estate and all that.
Let's go. Congrats, bro.
Thank you. It's freaking awesome. But proof was in the pudding, right? Dude, that post, I'm going to read the insights to you.
Let's hear
21,000 likes, 170 comments, 17,000 shares, 3.8 thousand saves, 1.1 million views, 97 of them for non-followers. So we had our first viral post, dude. Like very viral.
I love that. And let me ask you guys this. What out of all those stats that you just read, what was the one piece that pushed this piece of content out to that many people?
The shares. And you know what, dude, you're so friggin' on point with this. And
most people don't. 99% of people don't understand that, and they're putting out content.
So, dude, we were in the beginning. We were like, okay, it's for the saves, right? We want things that's savable. People go back to them, dude. How many things you save you never go back to ever? Like we have archives of saves. But the shares, dude. Today we posted that 2 months ago. Yeah, just about 2 months ago. People keep posting it on their stories. Every day we get 5 people that post on their stories because it's the women and the men. They're like sending it to their significant other. And they're like, oh, we got to do this, honey, blah, blah, blah. So Dude, proof's in the pudding. I just wanted to say like, thank you for that. It's sometimes it's basic and you just need like a little bit of a reframe, but I can't believe it, dude. And we were like, I know we're in a competition with some of the other guys and things like who can get the most reach. And I was like, Lauren, dude, you know, I know this last month, but we're at 1.1, baby. Like so we were stoked. Yeah. So needless to say, dude, thank you. And it, you know, not that we got 1 million followers from it because it was someone else's post that we reframed and tailored to our life, but badass and it works. And we're just going to keep moving forward.
I love that. So keep doing more of that. Yeah, you got to throw gas on it.
That's exactly what we're going to do. I have a question. I know we're running up on time here, but I'm wondering this, we'll kind of tie this all together a little bit. Do you believe, Rich, that you should start a social media following or social media brand, regardless if you have something to sell or something to push or something that you're trying to achieve? And the reason why I asked the question is Ryan and I have been building our real estate portfolio on the side of our W-2 jobs for 4 years. I recently left my W-2 job. I now have a significant reason to do that, not to just build our portfolio, but build our coaching program. Now it seems like everything's aligned. Every post has a meaning. Everything has a driving force to build our coaching program and build our real estate. But for years we were posting because we thought we were supposed to, and we were kind of in this realm of just kind of growing, but kind of stagnant for a while. So do you think people should start a brand to build a personal brand before they have something that is super powerful and meaningful to build it up? Or do you think it's like, it only really makes sense to put time, energy, and effort if you have an end goal with it?
Personally, I think there's too many people trying to teach on things they've never done before, or maybe they've only done it once. And so I think if you don't have a lot of experience in whatever it is, I think that instead of spending time putting out content, and spending time editing videos and all this stuff, you should instead take that time and go focus on getting experience and getting competency, and getting some more confidence. So then when you go out and start putting out content, you can actually do a better job of speaking from personal experience, and actually do a better job of storytelling. And it's going to make your content way better when you're actually ready to go put out content. And so I would say, don't put out content if you're new. Go get the experience first in whatever your niche is, and then put out content after the fact when you actually have a story to tell.
Got it. So do the thing, then talk about the thing that you do. Right?
Exactly. There's too many people out there teaching things that they've never done before.
The moral of the story is take action. Get 85% of the way there, and as Corey says, build a parachute on the way down. You have to take the leap of faith. You're proof's in the pudding. Your story is exactly that. Even with the meetups before you even had any piece of real estate. So I have 2 more questions for you. First one is going to be this, and then we can wrap with the final one. What is your why? I'm curious. Every like high performing individual that I know or I've come across has a chip on their shoulder for some specific reason. I know mine, I know Corey's, and you know, another gentleman I look up to, Tom fucking Brady, right? Like I love him. He has a chip. He's just mastered his craft. And say what you want about his personal life, but that's that. So I know that high performers have this thing inside of them. Maybe you can't quantify it, maybe you can, but maybe talk to us about like what's your driving force of doing what you do every day.
Dude, like you just nailed it, man. Like I grew up always kind of like as the underdog, man. So playing sports growing up, I always wanted to be the best. So I've always like had this competitive drive, you know. And then even as an air traffic controller for 11 years, I always wanted to be like the best at controlling airplanes. And so that like really translates into everything I'm doing today. And so I'm very competitive. I've always wanted to be the best. And for me, I want to build a big thing. Like I want to build a big thing. I want $1 billion of real estate. I know it's going to take a little bit to get there. I want my podcast to be a really big podcast at some point. I envision it being like a Joe Rogan type of podcast at some point. I know that all starts with me. And right now, like, for example, like, you know, I always say you got to put yourself in situations where the hard way is the only way. And so, yes, I've seen some success over the last few years, but like, I'm not satisfied. I'm fucking hungry as fuck. And like right now, for example, for your audience is like, I'm in a season of like no alcohol, no drinking, no substances. I'm waking up early every single morning. I'm in the gym. I'm putting out content. I'm focusing on recrafting, reinventing myself. Patrick Bet-David says something. He says, most people only reinvent themselves when something bad happens to them. They go through a divorce, they get fired from their job, they get in a car accident, then they reinvent themselves. But the people that reinvent themselves over and over every 6 months, not because they have to, but because they want to, those are the people you need to be afraid of.
Dude, I love that. I'm in the same cycle as you. I think it's 3 months, maybe 4 of no drinking. And I'm like biohacking in a way too. I'm like just really like did a bunch of blood work to like dissect myself. And I know everybody is different. Like, dude, I truly feel like I'm on a different level and no one can stop me right now. Unless I get smacked by a bus or something. But truly like genuinely, like I wake up and like I was fucking ready for this podcast today, dude. I was like, nothing's stopping me. We know this guy. Like I'm just, there's just little things you look forward to. And I have a young child at home now too, and dad life, different level, bro. Like you can't stop me. Like I really genuinely don't like, if people tell me stuff that I can't, like, I'm not on the wavelength with you anymore, I'm like over it and I move on to the next thing. Whereas like a lot of times you used to second guess what people think. And like, we have our lane, we're dialed in, we're around the right people, we're in the right sphere now. And I truly believe that. And like, you know, we learn a lot from you just like on the side too, but there's different things to this. Even just posting subtly about not drinking, dude, people will knock it. They're like, you're just doing this for likes. Like, dude, that's a real thing. Like once you get to this upper game, people don't have time to be foggy in the morning. If you really want to excel and like get to the next level. So just a side note, like coffee, done with the coffee, dude. Like it was giving me anxiety and stuff. And like just really narrowing things down. And like people go, oh, are you a boring person now, dude? Like, no, not the case. I'm just at the highest level of my percent. So I want to get there.
Yeah. It's a flex to not drink, or at least to go through seasons throughout the year to where you don't drink for a period of time. It's a new flex.
100%. 75 Hard started it all, Andy Frisella, and like I think that's what got it into like our community. But I know at the top there we have 60 seconds. My last question for you is, if everything was stripped away from you today, what would you do? Like $0, nothing in the bank. You have to start from day one, but you have all the knowledge and the wisdom that you have and experiences over time. How would you build it back up to be at the same level, if not better?
This is easy. I would, if I had lost everything today, I would go out and network and go source a lot of people that have a lot of money. And then I would raise that money and I would go use that to buy businesses, real estate, and reposition the real estate, make the real estate worth more. And then I would, be able to pocket the spread. The highest value skill out there today is the ability to go raise and multiply capital. So that's exactly what I would do. Wow,
dude. I will say one of the most fun podcasts I've had in a long time. Maybe it's because we got one of our top dogs on here that we've been, aspiring to be and look up to. I will say, if you're not following Rich, make sure to follow him on social. We'll link everything in the show notes, and the Rich Summers Report, amazing show. We learn a lot from that on a daily basis. But Rich, if people want to network with you, get in touch, potentially learn more about what you have going on in your life and your business, where can they find you?
Everything's at Rich_Summers. That's SOMERS. And last thing I'll say is this: you guys are fucking amazing. I love you guys.
Thanks for tuning in this week to the Wealth Juice Podcast. If you liked what you heard, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, subscribe, and share with friends. The more ratings we get, the more ears we'll get on our show, and in turn, we'll be able to provide you with more high-quality guests. You can also find us on Instagram and YouTube at Wealth Juice Official, where we post daily tips, tricks, and document our own journey towards financial freedom.